Welcome back, capital F football fans, to the O&O Sports YouTube channel. Today, we are looking at the biggest, most impactful transfer portal additions of this offseason so far before we hit the spring window. As always, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. And let's go ahead and start with the quarterback for Duke, Darian Mensah. Now, we have to preface this by saying we do have a little PTSD from DeQuan Finn last season. Very similar player overall to Mensah, was an elite talent at the group of 5 level, but just couldn't get it to work at Baylor. But we do like Darian Mensah to work out a lot better. One, because we like the scheme fit better, and two, overall he's a bit more polished than Finn was heading into last season, especially as a passer, which is kind of crazy to say because he's going into his sophomore season, his second full season as a starter, and he usurps the role of Malik Murphy, who makes the jump to Oregon State, and we honestly like him more overall in this role. Not to say that Murphy is a bad quarterback, they're both good in their own rights, but in Duke's spread offense, we like Mensah's decision making, pocket presence, and overall passing ability a lot more than we do Murphy's. We think Mensah overall is a player that, given the right tools, can be a day one draft pick in a couple years. He is just phenomenal, has all the tools to be a very successful player in the league and in the ACC this year, and we expect him to make a big impact for the Blue Devils this season. Next, let's jump to the Big Ten to look at the running back for Michigan, Justice Haynes, who essentially served as Alabama's third running back behind both Jalen Milroe and Jam Miller last year. Played a huge role in that offense regardless, going for nearly 450 yards and 7 touchdowns on just 79 rush attempts in 2024, while also showing promise as a receiving back in that backfield. And now that he's at Michigan, he's slated to be their top running back next season as they too lose their top 3 rushers from 2024. He'll be playing in an offense that ran the ball 60% of the time last year. We do expect that number to come down a little bit with the additions they've made at quarterback, but they'll still be a run dominant team, and we think with the added volume that could be around top 25 in all of the FBS next year, he could easily go over 1,200 yards next season, most likely placing him around the top 15 in terms of running back production. We think he has all the tools of a guy like Mekhi Hughes, who also could have made this list, but we like Haynes a little bit more in terms of pure output based on how Michigan's offense is going to look this season and has looked so far under Sharon Moore. Could easily be in the same ballpark as a guy like Blake Corum was in terms of yards. Maybe not the goal line back that Corum was, but for sure has that 1,200 plus yard and 15 plus touchdown lead tailback upside with his size and speed. And overall, we really love the addition. We think there are more talented rushers out there in terms of pure ability, but in terms of impact on an offense, we love the upgrade the Wolverines made in acquiring Haynes. And next, let's jump to the SEC to look at the defensive lineman for LSU, Patrick Payton, who makes the jump to the Tigers after playing his last 4 seasons at Florida State. And we absolutely love this pairing. LSU is a team that was sneaky good at getting to the quarterback last season. They ranked top 15 in the country in sacks and sack percentage per game, and we think they've upgraded all around on defensive line despite losing 3 of their top 4 defensive linemen from last season. And topping the list of additions they've made on that unit is the man, Mr. Patrick Payton, who racked up 16 sacks, 32 tackles for loss, and 3 forced fumbles in his past 3 seasons with the Seminoles. Monster numbers there, and we think with how well LSU schemed the pass rush last season that we could see an inflation of those numbers similar to what we saw with Braden Swinson last year, but we think he could take a step further. We like him to have around 15 tackles for loss and 8 sacks next season, but we think he is capable of a lot more, especially if that defensive staff chooses to use him that way. Can't say for sure just yet on if that will be the case, but he's going to be a guy capable of rattling off an 18 tackle for loss, 12 sack kind of year, and taking home SEC Defensive Player of the Year if used correctly, of course. He's an absolute animal in the trenches, and we're excited to see how Blake Baker decides to roll with him next year. But moving on, let's jump back to the ACC to look at defensive back Xavier Lucas of Miami. A controversial exit from Wisconsin leads Lucas to the beaches of Miami, Florida. This is a get that not very many people nationally are honed in on just yet, but one that we think will prove to be vital come spring ball and in fall practice. We expect him to generate a lot of buzz as a defensive back because in the past season, he's made strides as a defender at Wisconsin, and he's going to play a huge part in a Miami secondary that performed pretty well last year, all things considered. But we think this addition could put Miami in a different tax bracket next year, so to speak. That secondary has upgraded massively in terms of pure talent. We think Xavier Lucas is one of the most talented players that room has seen in a long time. We think he has day one draft pick upside, like we said a couple of times in this video. He's got a great frame for a defensive back and was very sticky in that Wisconsin secondary last year. And with the jump to the ACC, you're naturally going to see higher passing volume than that of the Big Ten on average. He's going to have a good bit more opportunity to make those big plays at Miami, and we think that if teams decide they want to try and pick on him this year, wouldn't see why they would want to, but if he's gonna see a huge boost in his stat sheet output. Last year had 12 tackles, an interception, and 2 pass defenses in 12 games. Next year could very well double and triple some of those numbers. We like him to make an all ACC team next season en route to a very successful career at Miami over the next few seasons. And last in this video, we're jumping back to the SEC, specifically Norman, Oklahoma, to look at John Mateer, someone who we've talked about extensively already this offseason, but a guy we honestly think could very well save the Sooners and Brent Venables this season. With him comes Ben Arbuckle from Washington State, and those two are going to be locked in this year. They know exactly what to expect from each other, and they'll be taking over an Oklahoma offense that, while talented, just couldn't get it figured out last year. They overhaul that side of the ball, and they now look poised to take a big jump this year with a guy like Mateer, who tallied almost 4,000 yards of total offense and 44 total touchdowns with Washington State last season. Absolutely phenomenal numbers there. We can't say for sure how that offense will look at Oklahoma in the Big 2025, but we know that Mateer is essentially what they wanted Jackson Arnold to be last year. He's a pure dual threat guy who can hit the deep ball consistently and who's a good decision maker. And we think that even if he takes a step back with the jump to the SEC, he's at least going to be a guy that advances the offense, has a deep ball that's worth looking out for if you're a defensive coordinator, and most importantly, isn't going to give the ball away consistently. We think that with this upgrade, the Sooners immediately go from a bottom 5 offense in the FBS to a top 51. We think they're closer to 25 than 50 in all honesty, but we will have to wait and see. And with that, thank you for watching. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. It helps us out a lot, and we will see you in the next one.